I'm going to be talking to you about a very important subject, I believe, called the art of stress-free productivity through authenticity formula and holistic self. What I'd like you now to do is to think about something rather that worked and was very successful and which you enjoyed doing very much on your job. What makes you really come to work every day and say, this is what I love about my job. How are you feeling when you were working in this activity? How energized do you feel? Yeah? Now, what I'd like you to do, just for 2 minutes, and no more than that, I want you to just take the neighbor next to you, and I want you to share the feelings that you have when you're engaged in those sorts of tasks. What adjectives would describe it? What sort of things do you feel you could do? 2 minutes, I'll stop you just now. Okay, I'm going to ask your attention again. Sometimes it's quite hard to get people back when they start talking about the things they love. Their energy rises, yeah? And what happens is there's a buzz that starts to develop. You can feel it in the room. People are talking about things they like. It's a positive feeling. Strengths are underlying qualities that energize you, contribute to your personal growth, and lead to peak performance. Another definition, understanding personal strengths contributes to improved performance, confidence, and engagement. What would it be like if you were able to spend most of your time playing to your strengths, not just some of the time? Yeah? What would it be like? Gallup surveyed the following question on thousands of employees. Do you get to play to your strengths at work most of the time? What percentage do you think of people in the working population said, yes, I do? Well, you might guess 30 or 40% maybe, or maybe 20%, but maybe not 12%, which means that 88% of their people are not as energized as they could be. No wonder we struggle with engagement surveys where the numbers just don't get towards the high 90s. We are actually asking people to do things they dislike and de-energize them. We live in a deficit-based society. Let me give you some examples. We learn from mistakes to learn to be successful. Yes, you may have heard that. I don't know if it's in Ukrainian, it's certainly in the UK. In actual fact, we learn from mistakes so that we learn how to avoid mistakes, not how to be successful. There's a big difference. Banks assess debt in order to grant credit. We study dissatisfied customers because we think that will lead to satisfied customers, but we learn how to satisfy a customer. We don't. We learn how to avoid dissatisfying customers. It may not be the same. We focus on disgruntled employees to learn how to increase employee engagement. Again, it's a fallacy. Your child comes, how many of you have got children in here at school? Yeah. Okay, we've got a few in here. Your child comes home with 3 A's, 3 B's, and a D. Yeah? If you're lucky. What subject do you ask them to focus on? Do you focus on and ask them to focus on? Great if you've asked them on the A's, but it's typical for high achievers to say, hey, why did you get a D in that? What went wrong? Yep. The opposite of bad is not good. It's not bad. Yep. So when we try and reverse things, they don't always come out quite the way we intended them to do. People are not our greatest strength. people's strengths are if we allow them to use them. It's a fallacy when we say people are our greatest strength. That depends on whether they're able to play to their strengths every day. Great companies are never made up of great teams. If you look closely, you'll see they're made up of great teams and not so great teams. And if you work in one of those teams that's not so great, it doesn't feel great. It feels not so great. So everywhere, even if a company is performing well, there'll be pockets, areas where attention needs to be placed. An average is not necessarily, even if you've got 80% engagement, somewhere there may be 50 or 40%. One piece of research looked at an automotive company to illustrate this. And they saw that the dealerships that were scattered throughout the country, that the bottom 10% had staff turnover of 847 people. In the same size of operation, but in the top 10% of performers, the turnover was only 42. So the successful dealerships' turnover was low, much lower than it was in the bottom performing ones. In researching this, one question was most revealing in terms of the top 10% and the bottom 10%. At work, do you have the opportunity to do what you do best every day? That was the one question that consistently pointed to the top 10 or the bottom 10. So, how can you address this? Is it possible to address this? The answer is absolutely yes, and there are companies doing it. It starts with increased self-awareness, and there are a few strengths measurement tools around. Gallup's Strengths Finder has been one of the most widely used and really originates from America and the work of Gallup itself. And I think you can buy the book, Strengths Finder 2.0, and inside there it gives you a code that you can do an online test, so you can get your strengths back. It has an inventory of 34 strengths, and it gives you 5 of these. Facebook, Microsoft, Intel, Philips, and Cisco all use Strengths Finder, particularly in the US. A second tool developed a few years ago, and more European, is Strengths Partnerships StrengthScope. This provides an inventory of 24 strengths and gives you your significant 7, as they call it. Tesco's in the UK, P&G, BNP Paribas, the Royal Bank of Scotland, Novartis, the pharmaceutical company, are examples of companies that are actually using StrengthScope. And these companies are trying to create a strengths-based culture, because this is critical. It's one thing to be aware, but what will you do with the awareness when you know what your strengths are and the organization still doesn't allow you to play to the strengths? When we focus on strengths, organizations become energized, individuals become energized, and people talk about loving their job, but not just one or two, but across the board. That's it for strengths, okay? I have got a handout here for anybody, a one-page handout of the inventory of the 24 strengths that are used by StrengthScope. So if it's interesting for you to have a look at what are they measuring, you can have a look at those. It's got a label and a descriptor, what the strength actually means. And I've got quite a few of them, so you're welcome to take one with you. I'd now like to talk about employee engagement. And it's a topic that comes up, I guess, every conference. It's on everyone's agenda. How do we get it up? Let's just have a look at some of this. An employee's willingness to put in discretionary effort into their work in the form of time, brain power, and energy, above and beyond what is considered adequate. And the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development in the UK has defined it as, it can be seen as a combination of commitment to the organization and its values, plus a willingness to help other colleagues, organizational citizenship. It goes beyond job satisfaction. It's not simply motivation. Engagement is something the employee has to offer. It cannot be required as part of the employment contract. What percentage of the UK population describe themselves as engaged in the UK? Yeah? 1 in 3. Only 1 in 3 people believe that they are fully engaged in their job. 2 out of 3 report in as either being neutral or even worse, disengaged, actively looking to move somewhere. Interestingly, if the UK matched Holland, the Netherlands, employee engagement levels, it equates to around 800 million hryvnia, no small amount of money, I'm sure you will agree, in an increase in GDP. And in a survey that was done in the UK last year, at the beginning of last year, it revealed that 80 billion pounds, it's a lot of money, I guess that's what, 240 odd million hryvnia, is being lost in the UK because of poorly developed soft skills. And I believe that a lot of those lost soft skills are contributing to lack of engagement inside teams, inside companies. Employee engagement impacts on absenteeism, retention, levels of innovation, customer service. The list is endless. It has a major impact. 94% of the world's most admired companies, when surveyed, believe that their efforts to engage their employees have created this competitive advantage. What might be happening in your organization? I guess you're most informed of all the people being in the HR teams. So, impact on the bottom line. In the survey that was conducted, engaged employees perform on average at a 20% better level, and they are 87% less likely to leave. Employees' engagement levels going up means higher sales, higher customer satisfaction, and reduced absenteeism. All the parameters that we're trying to focus on to improve the productivity inside our businesses. And it affects the bottom line. In comparing companies 1 year with a year ago, the results, operating income was over 19% higher in companies that reported higher levels of engagement and minus 32% lower than the previous year in those that reported in the low employee engagement areas. And the same for net income and the same for earnings per share. It's an absolute predictor of operating performance inside businesses. So if line managers are not obsessed as to how they can get employee engagement numbers up and not hiding the reports or making light of the reports, then something needs to be done. So what are the 4 main drivers of employee engagement according to this survey? And I accept it's UK factors, and I accept that they may be slightly different in the Ukraine. But most of these seem to be fairly universal. The first one, senior management is interested in my well-being. Yeah. I feel that my manager cares for me and how I do. Improved my skills and capabilities. I'm growing in this company. I feel I'm being developed. My potential is being realized. Reputation of the organization as a good employer. Employer branding, something which I know you work on a lot and you discuss a lot. And the 4th one, input into decision making in my department. And I would put it to you that each generation that's coming into work today wants more and more say about how they work, who they work with, and exactly even how the reward systems need to be. We're under a lot of pressure, as we heard, and I think there's another talk coming about Generation Z later today. So that brings me employee engagement. Much of it is not that new to you because it's been around for some time now, and I think most people know it's costing us a lot of money and something we need to do something about. So I want to now bring the 3rd piece in, authentic leadership. It's based on the leader behaving genuinely and not according to how they think they should behave or behaving in a compromised manner in order to fit in to what the company wants. We've seen a huge amount of change taking place by people saying we're tired of the old politicians, we're tired of all the misleading talk, we want honesty. And I won't dwell on the US election result, but it's just another in a whole lot of, shall we say, where the feeling is that we can't trust the other candidate. Yeah. I'm not so sure that they voted for the best candidate, but the one that was the lesser of two evils, by the sounds of it, some election. We had it recently ourselves with Brexit, and we nearly had it with Scotland. So more and more now, people want to say, and there's more breaking up from collectiveness into separation at the moment, because people are disillusioned. And in work, they're disillusioned with many of the leaders, because they can't trust the leader. And if you can't trust the leader, there is no relationship. And if there's no relationship, there's a feeling, maybe my leader doesn't value me. And you may remember what was number one on the list of employee engagement factors. So, the belief in authentic leadership is that it can be nurtured and develops over a lifetime, that leaders' behavior is grounded in positive psychological qualities and strong ethics, which plays into strengths, not weaknesses. Leadership is created by leaders and followers together. In fact, we keep hearing this word leadership so many times, it's becoming just another commodity. And I would put it to you that perhaps followership is maybe the new leadership of the future. The intended outcomes are achieved only when the followers identify with the leader's values. And the leader creates change when they adapt their message to the followers' values. So there's an alignment of values inside the teams, inside the business. So authentic leadership, a pattern that draws upon and promotes both positive psychological capacity and a positive ethical climate to foster greater self-awareness and internalized moral perspective, balanced processing of information, and relational transparencies on the part of the leaders working with the followers in a climate of fostering positive self-development. The components: self-awareness, reflecting on one's own core values, identifying them, emotions, motives, and being aware of and trusting your own feelings. Internalized moral perspective, self-regulatory processes using internal moral standards to guide behavior. A balanced processing, ability to analyze information objectively, not with bias, and explore other people's opinions before making a decision. You may notice again the relationship of that one with input to being able to influence things that affect me. Yeah. Relational transparency, being open and honest in presenting one's true self to others, which in turn encourages the team to respond by sharing openly truthfulness the other way around. Factors that influence it? Well, first of all, positive psychological capacities, confidence, optimism, resilience. These things are built on strengths, not on weaknesses. I noted that you have a gold medalist in Ukraine, yes, in the Paralympics, a swimmer, Katerina, yeah? Do you think she became a world champion by focusing on other aspects of sport or by focusing on her strengths? In sport, we know it, but in business, we seem still to be lagging behind. We had this with coaching years ago. Coaching was for sport, not for business. Now, it's well accepted that coaching is a very powerful way of intervening with people. We're taking lessons from sport and applying them in business. We haven't done it yet with strengths. It is coming. Moral reasoning capacities, deciding what is right and what is wrong. Promoting justice, greater good of the organization or community. I saw the warm hand you gave the last speakers. Yeah. It's a big issue. They're fighting. It's very difficult. Yeah. But we feel good when we see progress. As I say, I've been coming here for 8 years. I notice now that these police cars with the blue flashing lights on going round, yeah? Unbelievable. You've reinvented the police force. I wonder how many other countries could do with some advice from you on that. Very, very great achievement. Critical life events, positive or negative, they act as a catalyst for change, for understanding yourself. People attach insights to their life experiences, and when they share these life stories, they get more clarity about who they are and why they make those decisions. And it stimulates personal growth. Why authentic leadership? Well, 3 reasons. First of all, and there may be more, it fulfills society's expressed need for trustworthy leadership in an uncertain world. And we're witnessing daily now the demands by people for authenticity, genuineness. Unlike traits that only some people exhibit, everyone can learn to be more authentic. And it is measurable. There has been a tool around for some time called Authentic Leadership Questionnaire, ALQ, which is accessible, which allows you to measure the degree to which the way you lead is the way you actually feel inside, that there's no discrepancy between the two. The characteristics of authentic leaders: aiming to do the right thing, that means right for the business, yeah? Honest and trustworthy, not manipulative. Open and adaptable, flexible. In tune with own values and true to them. In tune with followers' values. They take time to get to know what's important for their followers. Identify their own strengths and those of each of their team members, and allows the team members, shapes even the job around their strengths. Encourages the growth of each team member and self, positive and optimistic, and inspires the team. And I've yet to see a negative person inspire anyone, truly. Addresses issues openly, and finally involves each member of the team. Wouldn't it be nice to find someone that, lots of managers that do all of those things? But that is the shape of things to come. These managers are going to be, in the long run, far more successful than those that still continue to manipulate and act in old ways. So my final piece is to put these 3 together somehow. And there is a common theme that runs through all 3 of them. And that is the positiveness, strengths, optimism. It's about positivity. And when you create a climate of positivity, good things result. I will put it to you that focusing in these areas and finding ways of integrating them into the culture of your business will be one of the most powerful things you could do to effect positive change, higher levels of engagement, and stress-free productivity. It comes very positively when you work these things together. I'd like to thank you for your attention. Thanks very much indeed. Thank you.